This is Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, and the sun's already set here on the Yas Marina circuit, but the action is about to hot up, folks, because this is where the 2011 International V8 Supercar Championship begins, and this is our first grid for the season. Craig Lowndes with the first pole position ahead of his teammate Jamie Whincup. Alex Davison continues good qualifying form. Remember, he got his first pole in 2010. He's on the second row of the grid alongside Mark Winterbottom. Paul Dumbrell, the Bottle O Racing team, in position 5. Tim Slade for Lucky 7 Racing will be next to him. There's Jason Bright, car number 8 this year, the Team BOC colours. And Stephen Johnson for Dick Johnson Racing will start his year in qualifying from number 8. Lee Holdsworth and Jonathan Webb round out the top 10. Both of those guys finished off last year with victory on the streets of Sydney Olympic Park. There's Coulthard and Will Davison switching teams, so this gives us an opportunity to see the new liveries and the new teams and the new drivers. Steve Owen comes back in full time. Shane Van Gisbergen, his 50th championship start this weekend. Todd Kelly and Michael Caruso positions 17 and 18. Kelly Brothers Racing didn't have a good qualifying session, so there is number 1, James Courtney, the Toll Holden Racing team. That's not a good way to defend your championship series title with a 20th position in the first qualifying session for the season. David Reynolds for Stratco Racing. Warren Luff found the wall in qualifying. He'll start from 24th. Rick Kelly, 25th. Dean Fiore, Triple F Racing, car number 12, position 26. And there's Greg Murphy, the Pepsi Max crew. So Murph in car 11, and James Moffat for DJR, making his full-time debut in the V8 Supercar Championship, driving the car that won the title last year. Mark Beretta is down there on the grid. Brett?
Well, Matty, Craig Lowndes in a great position. Been a while, Lowndesy, since you've been up the front, but it's a nice view from here.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. It's sort of it's unusual being at the start of a grid like this, but nice way to start the championship. Now need a good start. There's stages in there at weekend you want to get right. Qualifying's one, starts another. Scafey knows all about that.
You've got your teammate alongside you in Jamie Whincup. Lowndesy, what's the plan from here? Do you plan to...
Yeah, try to beat him to 2-1 and then see what we can do. We're going to look after each other, obviously, being teammates, but we want another 1-2.
All the best, Lowndesy.
It's the first time that Craig started on pole position since 2009 when we raced over in Barbagallo. This circuit is simply breathtaking, and at night, well, it's even more so. This really puts the V8 Supercars under the spotlight in a fantastic way, and it's a great way to start the season. And Crompo, you mentioned it earlier. This is the type of time. It's really exciting because you get to come down, you see all the new liveries, you see all the new faces, you see all the new teams, and under lights just magnifies the beauty of it.
Great anticipation, and as I said earlier in the day, that lots of the teams up and down the lane now have been drinking heavily from the cup of optimism. They've done a lot behind the scenes to try and make sure that they're well prepared for a new season. It's always a struggle trying to maintain a competitive position, and to do it, you've got to change a lot of things sometimes to be able to get the ingredients right.
And for those of you that are worried about our previous champion, James Courtney, and in fact the other HRT, Garth Tander, have qualified well down the order, James had a bit of a drama betting his brakes, which was really part of a process that they did in the team that they came from. And so what happens when you go to a new team? You've sort of got to make all that stuff click, and sometimes that can take a little while. Garth had an engine drama earlier in practice, so he suffered all the way through. But I reckon these guys will probably pull their cars out early, get them out of the traffic and get on with it. They're pretty happy with the way the car's working, so they're not over yet.
It's a good point, Larko. Getting out of the traffic in the start of this race will be very important as we look at the Yas Marina circuit. It has 21 corners and it's 4.7 kilometres long. It's actually a weird mix of fast stuff and slow stuff, isn't it, Neil?
It is, and one of the things that I've noted year on year is that, and I looked carefully between qualifying and the race at the pit lane condition versus the condition of the track, and because clearly it's a dusty environment here, the organisers put a huge emphasis on making sure that the track surface is clean, and just as was the case when we were visiting Bahrain, they start to lose bits of the amalgam between the rocks, if you like, in the asphalt surface, and so as a result of that, I think the track has actually lost a little bit of grip. We know we're on a faster tyre in 2011 on board here with James Courtney, and again, folks, just reiterating the point about all new colours for 2011. So tyres quicker. Track is only marginally quicker year on year when you look at lap speed at the moment, and one of the real questions in this race is going to be tyre degradation. 43 laps, 200 kilometres, and it's not just a question of managing your fuel through to the end of the race. It is going to be a question of managing those tyres as well. Coming up with the right combination of both of those things to give you a strategic advantage.
On board now with Will Davison from the factory Holden team to the factory Ford team for his first start for FPR. And he's been very happy with the car. He probably qualified a little further down than he would have liked. He's in 12th spot, but he was very fast in sections of practice and qualifying. And he'll be, those cars will look after their tyres. And what Neil said before is guys have concentrated very hard on qualifying, on getting the fastest, best one lap as we go on board now with Lee Holdsworth. But what you've got to do now is across the 43 laps is ensure that you have got the best consistency. You've got to look after these soft tyres. Remember, on the soft sprint tyre for the first time ever in the Middle East.
So in terms of standard strategy, if you like, from this point where you leave the pit lane, you've got to get onto the circuit. You've then got to do your warm-up lap from the point where the tank is full to the point where it's empty. That's going to get you, as we look at Mark Winterbottom, new helmet this year, that's going to get you to about lap 16 if you choose to go with that strategy. If you wanted an alternative, traffic can affect that, or maybe a safety car, an incident, something that goes on in and around you. Paul Dumbrell, Bottle Racing Team, what a ripper conclusion to 2010 it was for Paul and team owner Rod Nash. Ford Performance Racing cars have all qualified pretty solidly, and he's in 5th. Will Davison had a little mistake on his critical lap, and that's the reason he was down the order. I spoke with Jamie Whincup a moment ago, and he's pretty happy. It's business as usual. But the other way of looking at this strategically is to work from the end of the race backwards. There may be some people that we see coming in from as early as about lap 7 if they wanted to basically get themselves out of the traffic and then try and make a strategic gain later in the race. They track sacrifice early, get in, get the job done, take their fuel. The burning fuel rate, the consumption rate here is about 4 litres per lap, and that's speaking in averages because clearly it varies from driver to driver, car to car.
And pole position, they've moved it, Neil, for this year, and pole position is on the right-hand side. So when we saw Mark Beretta talking to Craig Lowndes, he's on the right-hand side of the track, meaning that he's on the outside for turn 1. So Lowndes will have to get a good start to get across and ensure that he gets the run into turn 1 to maintain the lead of this race.
So that temperature is already starting to fall as nighttime kicks in here in the Middle East. So this is the rumble that we've been waiting for. The V8 Supercars roar back into life for 2011.
Oh, Lowndes stopped.
Lowndes has watched it, and Alex Davison has just blitzed him at the start. He took advantage and went straight through.
And Craig's going to be about 5th or 6th by the time they deal with this. He's out on the wide part of the section of the track leading up to turn 2 and 3. Wildly out of control there.
Someone spun.
That's Will Davison, I reckon.
Yeah, it is. He's turned around. Oh, it's going to be massive. That was a great bit of driving by a lot of guys. We'll get another look at that. But they missed him, and it was a fantastic bit of driving.
He was very lucky.
Man, that was close. We saw drama down here at the start of last year, but it's happened earlier in this race. That was on for young and old at turn 2 and turn 3.
So Davison, the big winner. Whincup waiting to pounce. There's Mark Winterbottom, Paul Dumbrell. So Lowndes is tucked in behind Dumbrell.
And Will Davison saying that he hasn't hit anything, but the tyres are damaged, so he'll have to come in and rectify that. Problem for one of the Fujitsu cars. Did he end up turning around? Caruso. He was in the background, and he got a fair serve.
Whincup is wasting no time.
Good pass. Alex was very nice to him then. It was just way too gentlemanly, that stuff. Get across, you've got to cover that line. So Whincup gets a pretty easy pass made down into turn 11. And now, as you can hear Mark Dutton, eyes forward, let's pull a gap. This is turn 15, 16. This is so fast. That's 210 kilometres an hour through there. This is 18 and 19, they're 90k corners. This is right in behind the marina and the hotel. As they come up to the 2 last corners to complete the first lap. There's Lowndes. So Lowndes down to 5th spot. Here's the start. Lowndes has a weird jump. You watch the front of Lowndes' cars. there you go. It almost stalls. Fantastic start for Alex Davison.
And just confirming, Caruso is at the tail of the field. So when we saw him in a half rotation over the back of the circuit, that has happened, and he's dropped to the rear in the Fujitsu car. Just like talking about that team, Gary Rogers Motorsport. Gary will be back in Melbourne at the moment watching the telecast. He's just had a hip replacement operation. So, Gary, all the best with that. We look forward to seeing you soon in Adelaide.
Well, almost by sheer survival instincts, Alex Davison found the front of the field there because he had to get past Craig Lowndes. There was a split-second difference between Lowndes stalling completely and Davison running into him. So Davison went left and found himself at the front. So
look at this.
Watch this for Will Davison. So, oh, this is so close.
Watch this. That there. Love,
Warren Love,
Fiore and Murphy have done a fantastic job.
I wonder whether or not Will got a helping hand there.
For sure. You can't have a lose there without one. That will be on board with Winterbottom, who just a little love tap.
And you talked about Will Davidson's tyre damage there. They are damaged, but they're going to try and leave him out. Neil mentioned the fuel window a little earlier. They're going to try and leave him out to about lap 6 or 7 and hope he gets in there so they can top him up with fuel. We might explain that a little more detail a little later.
Was that smoke with Whincup's car?
It looked like some smoke coming out of Whincup's car, but then if there was a problem, it's gone away. Lowndes, by the way, has got a couple of spots back. He's moved into 4th, so he's got past both Dumbrell and Slade. So your order is this: Jamie Whincup, then Alex Davison, then Mark Winterbottom.
This will be the late move by Lowndes on the inside of Dumbrell.
There was contact.
A little bump. It was a very late move by Craig. And there was also some contact before that with the HRT car's Tander at turn 8. And there's Garth. Garth's made great ground.
Mate, excellent.
He's up to 10th from 14th position. And James Courtney,
there's a car
16th.
off in the final corner as well. Might be Bargwanna. Yes, it is. So Jason Bargwanna driving for Brad Jones Racing this year, and again suggests that that was probably aided by somebody.
Guys, a tough start for Russell Ingall. He's been hit in the back. He's been into pit lane. He's also had to replace a blown tyre on the front left-hand side of the car, so a rough start for the Enforcer.
Yeah, he got caught up in all that mess at the start, and then there was more drama down at turn 8. So if you got through turn 2 and turn 3, then you got involved in the concertina effect at this corner here at turn 8. There was a lot of cars damaged in that opening lap.
And one bloke we haven't made mention of yet, which is good news for him, probably means that he's been away from all the trouble, is James Courtney. Number 1 on the door for the first time, and he's in 16th.
There is blue smoke coming from that car.
Absolutely.
From the Whincup car. So, and it's the same spot that we saw at the lap previous. Fastest lap of the race, Whincup on at 1:58.8. Courtney's reporting bent steering. So in whatever's gone on in the early phase of the race on lap 1 or 2, he's down in 16th, as you mentioned. He's now carrying some wounds on that car.
And he lost a lot of ground. He's 0.4 of a second slower to the second sector against Alex Davison there. So he's lost a lot of ground. Look at that gap. That gap's right back.
Of course, the strategies are going to start to play out sooner or later, but you just wonder whether Alex Davison might rue that decision to be gentlemanly with Jamie Whincup coming in. Well, he gave Whincup enough room, and once you let Whincup go, there's a fair chance he'll never get him back.
Well, in its sector splits at the moment, he's quicker than him. So it's not like there's any issue with the car, although they were on their out lap, if you like, their cold lap. So maybe the car tyre balance combination wasn't quite as nice as it should have been. Problem for Jason Bright.
Big engine drama there for Bright. Big engine drama.
So both BOC cars.
It'll be a...
Keep off the line and you'll have to see how we go here, mate.
It's Phil Keed. It'll be a power steering related thing, I reckon, because he's reporting some sort of steering drama. So Jason Bright is going to have to come in and deal with that.
That's where it went. Tander copped a face full of smoke for his troubles.
Tander's marched into the top 10. He's 9th now. Whincup, Alex Davison, Winterbottom, Lowndes, Dumbrell, Slade, Johnson, Coulthard, Tander and Bright, but Bright will be in the pit lane shortly.
As we peek out the back of car 55 of Paul Dumbrell, you can see there Jamie Whincup leading the race. He was the man to beat here this time last year, and he started 2011 the same way. So it's Whincup, Davison, Winterbottom, the top three. Stevie Johnson's holding tight.
Started dropping sand before we saw it.
Flying Kiwi Shane van Gisbergen in 11th position, and he started 15th. For our Kiwi fans, keep your eyes on the gears, because you'll remember that this is where he made his first podium. Last year, he racked up the podiums.
James Courtney's got a front left broken steering arm, so he's just reported a failure in that car, and he'll be in.
It's just a question of time on Shane van Gisbergen as to when he wins a race.
And look at the amount of oil over the windscreen of Garth Tander's car.
Keep looking after those tyres.
Big problem for James Courtney, and broken front left steering and a lot of frontal damage on that car, and he's in the garage, the reigning champion, out of business in race 1.
Wait up. 2 blocks under the front.
And a lot of damage in the rear of that car too.
That was the concertina at turn 8. They were all just running into each other, and that's what happens. A big fast straight, 250 km/h straight to a 65k corner, and in the early laps it always happens, and that damage to the front and the back of the series champion.
This is game on.
This is Van Gisbergen and Holdsworth. These are two very aggressive young blokes.
Van Gisbergen's moving his way through the field, although he's missed it there and he's had to cut it through.
Yeah. As long as he doesn't get an advantage, he's okay with that.
You just go back to James Courtney.
He's got him here. He's managed to pull the crisscross, or has he? It's not done yet. It's a great battle between these two. It is done. Two schools of thought on whether you gain an advantage or not when you do that. I mean, yes, he doesn't physically end up with a positional gain, but you could strongly argue that when you cut the corner and get back on in the same position, that close to the other car, that can be a gain. So there's a little paddock debate goes on about that.
Yeah, guys, I'm just in under here now, so I'll get into these guys' way. You can see they've got a couple of steering arms, spare ones here on the ground here. So we can see in here, there's one broken clean off. We've talked about it before. What they do is have a shear point in here, so they don't create too much damage to everything else, but there's no, I mean, they're in a hurry here, but there's not a real sense of panic, so I'd be surprised if we see James out right at the end of this race.
So what happens with that is they set them to a length. The length is preset so that the spare steering arm that would go on then means that you don't have to wheel line the car when it bolts straight back in. So it needs to be very, very precise for the steering to be straight and for the car to track true when it goes back out.
However, there is value in getting James back out on the racetrack. He's already obviously down the order. He and Jason Bright are down the bottom, but if he can classify and complete 75% distance, then he gets points, and points can make a big difference at the end of the year. It was only 65 of them at the end of 2010 that determined the outcome. And this is Jason Bright. Just mentioned him, the Team BOC car. We saw the oil leak, and that was not a symbol you want to see from a senior crew member.
And it's a good observation, Scafey. You notice when I showed you on the floor there's actually 2 steering arms they've got there. I reckon what they've got is 2 presets, so depending on the amount of damage, they can probably bolt whichever one on they want to try and get the car tracking as straight as they can without having to give it a wheel alignment. Well done.
Thanks, Larko. That's a very nice way to start the year. That's the first compliment. Did you hear that, Neil? Is Mark all right?
I'll set my DVD in future so I can record those moments.
It's the first compliment. Probably be the last.
Scafey, don't mistake yourself. I was complimenting the teammate, not you.
Oh, sorry, Larko.
So just to the point on James Courtney, 27th on the computer at the moment. You get the car back out and get it classified, and there's 24 points in that for you. So it's not good news, but every point will count. So they'll work, not necessarily feverishly, but they'll work to make sure they get it back out.
This is a good, healthy battle here with Tim Slade right behind Paul Dumbrell. Just behind that is Stevie Johnson and Fabian Coulthard. They're having a good battle too. So there's a couple of really good strategic games to be played now, because as we get close to this first fuel window, we're basically at that now. And if you play the alternate fuel strategy, you can basically come in after lap 7.
Lowndes, who's currently 4th in the field, recovering from the tardy start. Has just been instructed to put his headlights on if he can be heard, if they can hear him. So what the deal is there must be a comms problem, and so they're hoping that there's at least one-way communication between team to car. If the lights come on, they know that Craig can hear. Otherwise, they'll be back to pit boards.
Guys, the temperature's actually cooling down in the desert here at Abu Dhabi. It's 21.4 degrees outside at the moment, and the track temperature is 27.5. The relative humidity is about 70%, and the wind is from north at 11 kilometres an hour.
He's a weatherman.
He's gone to Grant
Look out, Grant Denyer.
It's been an impressive run this weekend from Tim Slade, and we saw glimpses of this last year. He's going to have another lunge here. New colours on that car for Lucky 7, a convenience store. Backing the car, Paul Dumbrell arguing the point, and he also has to chop across.
Now that's an advantage.
That looks like a fairly healthy one to me. You call that an advantage? Now that's an advantage.
Do we want to argue about that one?
No, we weren't arguing, but it was just an interesting point, because you and I have discussed it before about the whole notion of chopping the track and then say, oh yeah, but I didn't get an advantage. You come out 3 thou off the guy's bumper and you pass him at the next corner.
Well, modern racetracks like this, because if you go off the road, it's still asphalt. So if you go off the road here, in yesteryear, if you went off the road, you're in the grass, and clearly you were not going to get an advantage.
Took you a little while to recover from all that mess.
But he did gain 4 or 5 car lengths there, so...
A couple of good movers into the top 10, both Garth Tander and Shane van Gisbergen. Stevie Johnson's holding down his position. He's in 7th. So let's watch him on. Come on, Pie. Jamie Whincup first. There's Alex Davison. He's 2nd. Then it's Winterbottom. Lowndes started from pole. He's now 4th. This battle's great. Dumbrell versus Slade. There's Stevie Johnson. Down the list we go. Coulthard, Tander, Van Gisbergen, Lee Holdsworth. That's Tony D'Alberto. And then Todd Kelly in 13th. So he's made up a few spots as well. There was quite a bit of head scratching going on at Kelly Brothers Racing. So Whincup in control. And in control well. It's 1.7 seconds. Back to Alex Davison. And now the pit stop strategy starting to come into play. Jonathan Webb, winner on the streets at Sydney Olympic Park, is the first one to come through. Will Davison. Trading Post sponsorship.
Fuel's done. You'll go when it drops. Go when it drops. Go, 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 go. Clear out.
First time since 1999 Stevie Richards hasn't been full-time in the category.
Stevie will definitely be watching this.
Hope you're kicking back and enjoying it, mate.
Yeah, having a quiet beer.
Just quietly, don't reckon he's enjoying it.
No. Well, enjoy the racing, you don't want to.
Yeah.
He'll be with us for the long distance races, so he'll be back.
This is great, this part. You dip underneath the tunnel. Not a lot of room down there. So they come out of pit lane, go down through the tunnel, and then pop up the other end and rejoin the circuit proper. It's just an awesome venue.
Got the update from Brad Jones Racing, and it was a steering rack seal, as I guessed earlier, with that car for Jason Bright. So that's the reason why he's in car number 8, the BOC car, and out of business for now.
And while we're giving some Cheerios out, let's offer our thoughts to you, Jason Richards. I know you'll be watching as well. So, Jason, hang in there, mate. Come back and play with us soon.
And it was fantastic to see Jason have an opportunity to drive the BOC car at the recent V8 Supercar launch and test day. And that's where he's happy. That's what he likes doing, and we're all in full support of him being in the car and getting back soon.
Guys, I just grabbed the Dick Smith Tech Centre. I want to try and explain to you what Neil was talking about earlier about this fuel strategy. Now, just quickly, I want to show you there's a couple of key critical elements. Fuel tank capacity on these cars, 75 litres. They're all the same. Fuel consumption around here, we know, is 4.1 litres per lap. Fuel range, therefore, is 18 laps. Now, they only get 16 at the start because they've got to do an out lap and a warm-up lap, but it's effectively 18 laps. So what we have is a conventional strategy. So they fill their cars up, okay, until they run out, 16 laps to start with. They fill them up again. They'll go for 18 laps. That'll take them to 34. Then they'll do a nice little short fill, and that gets them through to lap 43 at the end, right? That's what we'll call a conventional strategy. Now, the option to that, and we've just seen some guys do it right now, is that they'll start with a full tank. They'll come in on about lap 7 or 8, right? Fill up, a little short fill, then they'll run all the way down to 25. You watch, they'll come in again, they'll fill up again, and that'll get them all the way through to the end. So what we're going to call this is the critical lap number 25. That's the earliest you can pit and fill up with fuel and know that you're going to get all the way home.
Well explained, Larko. That was great. That's exactly what we've seen with those first guys coming in there now, and the guys that are currently on the track, and they're trying to get to this number that Larko was just explaining. And this is a really healthy battle. This is a good battle of really good drivers in good cars.
We'll check out this replay between Slade and Dumbrell as this battle continues, and what it's done effectively, because remember we were focusing on these two out fighting by themselves. Well, now they're fighting with everyone else. Craig Lowndes has decided to come into pit lane, but Stephen Johnson, Fabian Coulthard, Garth Tander and Shane Van Gisbergen have all joined this lineup, headed by Dumbrell, Slade behind him. Lowndes comes in.
Can I be neutral in the box, please? Neutral in the box.
So added to that strategy that Mark was talking about then are Lowndes and Rick Kelly.
Can you give me a thumbs up? Is your radio plugged in and everything? It looks okay? Okay, thank you.
That was a huge roll centre adjustment on that car. I assume that's the roll centre.
Well, it's normally that, but it looked like a weird adjustment. It looked very strange.
And that's one for us to chase in between.
And you touched on the communications problems that they were having there for car 888. Lowndes gave him a thumbs up. He was all plugged in, could hear. So
sometimes your little earpiece will just drop out of its connector on the helmet, and once the race settles down and you've got time to relax into a position, you can plug back in and reconnect to the world, and relaxes everybody in strategy land.
So the pit stop starting to play their part in the first race of the 2011 season. Here's its lineup that I was talking about. Dumbrell and Slade. Look at the other guys just tagging along the back. Stephen Johnson holding his fire right now. Behind him, Fabian Coulthard. Jamie Whincup has just set the fastest time around here at 1:58.71.
That is a very impressive time.
And that betters the race lap record held by Shane Van Gisbergen in 2010. It's going to get busy in pit lane. So Slade's in, Tander's in, Van Gisbergen, D'Alberto and Owen. Well, Tim Slade was having a good battle with Paul Dumbrell, but Slade's in pit lane. In fact, there's a flurry of activity now. Garth Tander has been processed. Jamie Whincup leads the race and has just posted the fastest lap ever done around here by a V8 supercar. Just see how they rejoin. So 47 comes out, Van Gisbergen, Tander and D'Alberto. 1:58.712 is Whincup's new lap record time.
So Slade, for example, is hoping here that by peeling off the back of Dumbrell, he gets himself in a better position after this round of stops in the battle with the green car. Now, interestingly, in the brake double check, there was a rear roll centre adjustment on Craig's car. They've dropped it, I understand, and have confirmed that there is a radio problem in that car. He can hear them. I'm not sure he can transmit.
They're finding good time out there because Todd Kelly's now bettered the lap record time. It belongs to him. 1:58.65 is the fastest lap done around here, although Whincup is backing it up with another quick one. We'll see how he finishes off that lap.
And this will be interesting for Tander because the two Stone Brothers cars in front with Slade and Van Gisbergen have shown really good speed all weekend. Tander has suffered for speed so far. So with clear track, Garth has got to try to hang on. A lot of damage on the back of that car as we saw at turn 8 early in the race.
Out in front again. A 158.62 this time from Jamie Whincup. And that's how he won those championships back-to-back. He made good when he had the time to do it. So right now he's putting himself 4 seconds clear of Alex Davison, while those behind him play the pit stop game. Here comes Winterbottom.
Now these fellas are using a little bit of their fuel flexibility here to be able to do this.
Red switch to P2. Back tyres are on now. We're going to fuel the tyres. So as soon as it drops, you're going to go, brother. Go. Clear out, man. Watch for rounds on the merge, so auto your bars, brakes.
Campbell Little speaking with Mark Winterbottom.
The merge is tricky.
It is, and you've got to be very careful, Matt, when you come down through the tunnel, because it would be very easy. Here's Courtney, with Jason Bargwanna. You said it earlier that you thought that Bargwanna might have been tagged, and certainly was. It was James Courtney, and there's the damage. So it wasn't from all the early drama.
They must be two separate things. So all the damage in the rear of that car must have been on the opening lap. So here we are on board with Mark Winterbottom plunging down the hill to turn 4. We're going to stay on board here and enjoy the sights and sounds of the Orcon Ford Performance Racing Falcon. Remember, he's just gone out on cold tyres, and this is a real dance and juggle to try and get the most out of the lap time. The cold tyre laps are critical. Let's watch and listen. We jumped out of that because this little battle here is worth the price of admission. So Shane Van Gisbergen and Paul Dumbrell are at it.
Oh, Van Gisbergen's having a look both sides here.
And Tander will capitalise because he'll hook on behind Van Gisbergen because Dumbrell will have to yield.
And remember that Shane brought form from last year. He did very well here. He was 6th and 3rd in the races in 2010. And that unforgettable drive from him on the Gold Coast last year has really shot him to prominence in the eyes of Australasian race fans, because the young Kiwi is developing a real serious following.
Well, this was the first of 9 podiums that he put together in 2010. The big question is, when will that first win come for Shane Van Gisbergen? If it's not today, it won't be too far off.
You can really see there Tander's car has got no front grip in comparison to the 2 cars that he's with, because he couldn't get the nose of the car in. You look at the amount of time that he's lost, even in that half a lap. It's 2 or 3 car lengths. He just has not got the front precision to get the car to the apex of the corner.
He was less than impressed after qualifying and was a little uncomplimentary in his summary when I asked him what the car was like.
Stevie Johnson on exit, and possibly Holdsworth.
And when you speak to the drivers about their qualifying performance, the behaviour of their car, so competitive, they take this so deadly seriously, and the fastest lap of the race now belongs to Tim Slade. And I was watching his sectors as we were talking. He's up in 10th, a 58.3 new record on board here with Paul Dumbrell.
That was him just there, just went out of shot.
Yeah. So, you know, these guys, it matters, and that's a good thing, and it really matters. And so when you don't qualify where you feel that you ought to, it's a painful experience, and Tander trying to find a way of climbing out of that now.
Up over the rise, down towards turn 8. Jamie Whincup had a little moment there in qualifying, and in the end it probably cost him, or did cost him, a shot at pole position. He ended up on the 2nd spot of the grid next to his teammate, so it was a good all-round day for Team Vodafone as we ride with Paul Dumbrell, who has made it clear that this year will be his last, although we might wait until about race 26 out of 27 before we get the real answer.
Well, the way he drove at the end of last year, I mean, why would you stop? He's really doing a really good job. He's the CEO of Autobahn, and he's obviously, as an executive position, a very busy young man. But to come along on the weekend to drive the car, he's been doing a really good job.
Well, he got the balance right, didn't he? He got the balance right at the end of the year, and if he can carry that through to this year, then he'll be in for a stellar year as well, the Bottle entry. But Jamie Whincup has this race by the scruff of the neck. Lap 14 out of 43. So might work our way through the field here and continue to look at this battle, because You're right, Scafie. Garth Tander went along for the ride with Van Gisbergen, and he's going to slide past Umbrell.
And he's just, what Garth did there was just make sure that he made the exit as difficult as possible for Paul, and carted him out wide of the line. There was a little bump along the way. They actually had a couple of rubs in 2010, so they're previously in the same camp, and they'll be colleagues, if not mates, but on the racetrack, they're not going to give each other a millimetre for nothing.
Good work there, mate. Further consistent now, that's 13 complete.
Now, Whincup stays out 34 seconds. He's on the more conventional strategy that Mark Larkham explained earlier in the broadcast. So he's going to continue to run here and run all the way down to the bottom of this first load of fuel, which will get him to approximately lap 16. Or maybe earlier.
Mate, I've got clearance to drive through the DJR garage, please. I've got clearance to drive through.
Our race leader is in, Whincup. He'll drive straight through Stevie Johnson Racing pit bay. You watch these guys go to work.
Rears are done, first
So
all the wheels are done, just waiting on fuel.
that's the air
You'll be
coupling
good to go as soon as the ball drops you.
and some water.
Nothing, if you're brake, it's all yours. I'll give you the done.
So no trimming adjustment on that car. The stiffening of the rear bar to carry the fuel and aid the turn, and the softening of the front anti-roll bar to also assist in that process. So now just changing the way the car reacts to the new tyres and the fuel load, and the fastest lap of the race further improving for Alex Davison now, 1 minute 58.2.
It shows you how critical it is, because Mark Dutton said they're 4 times cold tyres to Jamie Whincup. So this is Tander on Dumbrell. Tander gets through.
And he just makes sure that Paul has to go the long way on the run between turns 1 and up to the top of the hill at 2-3. Just fed him a little bit of hip and shoulder. And now Lee Holdsworth's also offering up fair resistance. Paul's actually done a good job. He's got a good line through there.
But that gap has definitely come down.
Is it maybe it's just the guard rubbing?
That's tyre, isn't it?
Yeah.
That smoke we saw earlier was the right-hand rear. It's the back. There's a little bit of contact. There's a bit of wheel mark on the right rear there, and that's what a little bit of rubbing is. The smoke down into turn 11.
Big mate, obviously we have more fuel. We did a longer stop, so we will have a shorter stop later.
There we go. It's handy when Mark Dutton does the commentary for us. Makes it easy. So they ran him all the way down, and that's the standard strategy that Mark Larkin was talking about before. So now, after we've cleaned up a bit of the frantic on-track action, we'll jump back on board here with Mark Winterbottom and go back to telling that story of what it's like inside the Orcon Ford Performance Racing Falcon.
Short your bars if you can.
great vision, isn't it?
It's a busy place. There's a lot of it, isn't there? With 21 corners and just a little under 5 kilometres. And you can be forgiven for wondering where you are in this racetrack. And that's one of the things about a lot of the modern facilities. You know, it's surrounded by grandstands, a lot of very familiar colours and features all around the place. It's actually quite tricky to learn when the newcomers, Greg Murphy, for example, didn't get to run here last year. Yeah. And he was saying it took a little bit of time to come to terms with it.
Just to put a full stop on what we're showing you there a little earlier. So Jamie Whincup, a perfect example of what we were talking about, the conventional strategy. He started with his car full there. He came down, got to when it was empty. I think it was probably a little earlier than 16. They've filled it up again. He'll go to its empty. And you heard Mark Dutton, his engineer, say to him, there'll be a nice little short fill at the end to get him home. So that's the one they're talking about. So when some other guys are having a larger fill, they're going to be banking on a short fill. Now, very quickly, there's another little strategy in amongst this, which we're seeing play out here, which is the tyre strategy. Now, it won't confuse you, other than to say what they're doing is still starting full, coming down, doing a little half stop, a little short stop, and down to the end. And what they're doing here is making that equidistant to the end to split the tyres. And I know the tyres, I'll split the tyre load over the race. Stop your giggling, you guys, this is hard work. And I know the tyres are working hard, because I've been out with the heat gun already. And although it's cool out there, about 21 degrees on the surface, the tyres are running at 100 degrees centigrade. So they are working very, very hard, unlike my friends up in the commentary box.
A message for Customs back in Australia. Can you just take that gun off him when he gets back, the heat gun? I thought we had it removed.
This is a very good battle.
Thank you, Larko.
With Lee Holdsworth and Garth Tander alongside each other down the second of these two big long straights. And this is this fast section. We've seen so many of the cars off the road here through the weekend. You can see all those black tyre marks with the inside wheel locking. Holdsworth's got better speed, he's got better front accuracy than Garth Tander. And in these 90-degree style left-handers at 18 and 19, Tander's got very good drive off the corner, but the entry speed, the front grip for the Fujitsu car from Gary Rogers Motorsport is definitely superior in that part of the corner.
Switch to position 3 when you can, please. Position 3.
So Gary will be at home watching this Crompo. He'd be cheering young Lee on to get past the factory Holden of Garth Tander. As we said earlier in the telecast, Walkinshaw Performance deliver those engines to Gary Rogers. So he'll be wanting Lee to get up onto the back of Garth Tander and to do a really good, nice, neat pass. He's nice and close off the corkscrew as we watch them come down on lap 18 of the first race of the year in Abu Dhabi. Strategy will play out. Jamie Whincup is our leader. He's doing a great job.
Good job, buddy. Keep that rhythm, mate.
So Dean Fiore is the only bloke out there yet to pit. Talk about going the distance. He'd be lucky to go any further.
Ooh, that was close. That was Dean Fiore as Mark Winterbottom turned across in front of him at the end of the second straight at turn 11, and man, that was close. I thought that was over then, didn't you? I thought that was gone.
All that sound that you could hear was a lot of air being sucked in the commentary box. The air filters were working hard because that looked like it was going to be a massive contact. And Jason Bright will go back out on the racetrack now. They've put a new steering rack in the Team BOC car, so he'll rejoin. That means that he'll likely be classified in 28th position, which will be at least worth a handful of points to him.
And this is a good, healthy battle between Bargwanna and Jonathan Webb. They are in 22nd and 23rd position. And Jonathan Webb's been just getting better and better and better. He did a really good job in Sydney. He qualified very well here in 10th position.
Something weird, though, because he finds himself in 23rd, so we're trying to unfold all the replays in the head of who was pushing who early in the race, but somewhere along the line he hasn't fared as he should have.
He just caught the curb so hard at the left-hander at turn 14. It stood right up on two wheels and lost a lot of ground on Bargwanna. He was up in contention to make a pass as the last of the pit stop action takes place. Dean Fiore now coming in, and the race settles.
You see those shots there a moment ago, Matthew, of the good ship Scaife berthed at the marina, just underneath his presidential room at the Yas Hotel.
Oh, you'd probably have a nice view of it from your suite up there, wouldn't you, Croppo? The Yas Hotel.
You're the only one staying there? Are you the only one staying there now?
We're almost halfway here through race 1 of the season. Whincup, our leader.
Good job, buddy. Keep the pressure on him, mate.
Winterbottom second, Davison third. So the first round of pit stops have been completed. The field has been cleansed. Jason Bright will be heading back out there. James Courtney has already gone out there. And Lee Holdsworth continues this job against Garth Tander. He's going to push, he's going to shove, he's going to fight to get past.
Richard Holway just said to him, good job, buddy, keep the pressure on him, and that's exactly what young Lee's doing. They were alongside each other. Garth was a bit cheeky in the braking area. He moved it over in the braking area to try to minimise the chance for Holdsworth to get up the inside, and then he had a real dive at turn 14.
Radio report that I intercepted before was that Shane Van Gisbergen suspects that he might have a tyre problem in the SP Tools entry. But one thing I did notice, and here he is, one of the features of the Dunlop soft tyre is the amount of marbles that build up on the racetrack or offline. If you do go offline, and Scopey will reiterate this point, and you get some of that pickup on your tyres, sometimes you'd swear for all money that you've got a flat tyre or some sort of tyre damage. Now, he's pressing on there at the moment. He hasn't come in. There hasn't been any further chat about it, but it wouldn't be unusual to have a problem with tyre pickup in a race like this with the amount of debris building offline. There was a shot that I saw a moment ago, big chunks of, look at that, of rubber beginning to form.
That's absolutely right.
It's great to see the Yas Marina Circuit getting behind the people of Queensland, and that's the website that you need to go to if you'd like to help out for the flood relief, not to mention the cyclone that went through there as well. And the Kelly brothers have been terrific in their support. They've got Queensland stamped on their cars. So qld.gov.au/floods is the website.
And while we're in the break, for those of you tracking the progress of Jason Bright in the Team BOC car, they have now fitted a new steering rack in that car, and we can expect to see him out very shortly.
I promised I'd say g'day to the guys at the Lindock Motor Inn at Cardwell, who copped a battering throughout the cyclone, so hope you're going okay up there, fellas. This replay of Jonathan Webb, who's found himself down in 22nd position.
You watch this.
Bit of a mystery. Look at the marbles that you're talking about. Oh, up on 2 wheels.
A big moment there. Turn 14.
And just those shots there, the replay showed us a bit of rubber debris flicking. It comes out from the inner guards of the car. Now, I've been watching split times for Shane Van Gisbergen, and there's been nothing obvious going on the clock. So I think if he's reported some instability, that's possibly what it could be.
I mean, this circuit is pristine, but after 20 laps now, these V8 supercars and this soft tyre is making it look very used.
And Neil, those messages may not be coming clear out of Van Gisbergen's car because he's dropped an ear mould out of his ear. They've got the little ear moulds that sit in there that not only keep the car noise quiet, stop you losing your hearing so you can get that clear communication. One's dropped out, so they're actually using the old pit board out on the pit wall. Ross Stone's out here, he knows how to do that, teach these young fellas how to do it in analogue style. And so the messages may not be that clear at the moment to Gizzy.
He's driving well, though. He's right in behind Tim Slade at the moment. He's 6th and well positioned. Good opening account. In fact, this little battle here between Lowndes, Slade and Van Gisbergen is developing.
Good. There's a bit more to play out on that one.
Yeah,
Slade's got his lights on.
And Lowndes' car isn't as good in the second sector of this race. We already heard Mark Winterbottom say that the second set of tyres have got more oversteer as Garth Tander just makes turn 8 then. He had the rear wheels locked and he was struggling.
And I reckon Lee was on the button on the wheel then flashing the lights. So here we are again, side by side, this action on the big fast run down to 11. And he might have track position now.
Good job, Lee Holdsworth. Kept the pressure on, a little mistake from Garth. And it's such a difficult stop, as I said before, 250 kilometres an hour to 65 Ks. So as you retard the car all the way in the braking area, remember the cars haven't got a differential, so if you lock the rear wheels, both rear wheels lock. And that's Richard Holway saying, good job, mate. And they've got Lowndes. There's Tim Slade past Craig Lowndes and Van Gisbergen with plenty of pressure on the pole sitter.
So what will beginning to be a factor here will be tyre degradation. And different cars, different drivers getting more or less. Oh, Lowndes, big oversteer, so that reinforces the point. So at turn 20, Lowndes in full sprint car mode, all crossed up and sideways. And he's now vulnerable to Van Gisbergen.
22 to go.
He's gone. So Jeremy Moore just said another 4 laps, which means it gets to that critical lap that Mark Larkin was explaining before. So you've got to get to that number
to be able to get
home.
And then they'll get off that tyre set, which are clearly in the rear of the car, gone for Craig's. He'll end up tipping this thing off the road if he's not careful.
And what he'll be doing, he will have had the front sway bar right up, the rear bar right down, meaning that he changes the roll stiffness, and it just got so much oversteer. You have a look at that in 1 lap. It's an extraordinary amount of oversteer. Have a look at this. This is speedway action. Lowndes in full flight. What's this?
20. She just slides into the gutter, and he picks it up. It's fun, but it's not fast.
And the rear tyre will not be liking it. So you've got to try to contain yourself when this happens. And as we watch Lowndes try to just get to this next point.
And that's a different image with Adrian Burgess in the middle. And remember that Adrian helped guide James Courtney to championship victory last year. He's come onto that team and is looking to handle affairs, and also joining the team, although he's back in Brisbane at the moment, is John Russell, back from Williams Formula One to reinforce the engineering side of the team. So the question is, where's Roland?
Well, he's sitting next to Couchy, David Couch. He's down in the back corner doing data, and Roland's assisting him this weekend.
And I promised him that I said, you can run, but you can't hide. We will find you. So he's up the back of the garage at the moment, and he's changed his role in the team, and it's more supervisory.
Came close to losing the mirror there, Tim Slade. He's the guy that's been doing sprint car racing over summer, but last couple of laps, and that lap.
Speaking of sprint car racing over summer, because true to Mark's advice, what you need to do is take it easy.
Oh, yeah. Well, he always listens to me, Neil, you know that.
So when you've got only 0.5 millimetre of tread depth left in the tyre and you're beginning to see fragments of it, you know, look at this. Isn't this a wonderful shot of just how hard the underbody of the car is working on Will Davison's trading post, Ford Performance Racing Falcon. There's a big chunk of that rubber build-up that I spoke of on the bumper stay.
Yep.
See how it picks up in clumps and just sits there? So what we're seeing is the rear damper, rear wheel, a little bit of the rear anti-roll bar drop link assembly, side of the fuel cell. Where is he at the moment? He's down in 17th. It's been a bit of a traumatic run for him. Remember that the fella that he's battling, Michael Caruso, was turned around early in the race as well, so he's also in recovery mode.
Up the front, though, Jamie Whincup has now extended his lead to over 6 seconds against Mark Winterbottom. Michael Caruso wants to have a look here at Will.
See the damage on the back of car number 34. In the right rear corner of the car, and I heard Michael discussing with his engineer earlier that if we hadn't been turned around, we've got pretty good pace. Talking to Steve Todd Kelly on the radio. Great shot of the cars building to 270 kilometres an hour down here in this tight left-hander. Big brake temps. Nice margin between Whincup and Winterbottom, 6.6 seconds.
Lee Holdsworth's coming to pit lane.
I wonder why that is, because
he stopped on lap 12.
And haven't got to the critical number yet.
That's interesting. He did all that hard work to get past Garth Tander.
Now, at the moment, Alex Davison's faster than Mark Winterbottom too, so we need to just keep an eye on this. You can see that the margin's pretty tight. He took time out of him in the last several sectors that I've been watching, and here is Lee Holdsworth.
He's driven very well. Alex Davison's been very impressive.
Get ready. Left throttle. Go. You're right. Clear.
The reason for the message about less throttle, if you carry too much throttle percentage while the pit lane speed limiter is on,
Clear under the track there, mate.
the engine will cough and splutter, and you can potentially stall the car on departure.
Alex Davison is again on a charge. He's third position. In front of him is Mark Winterbottom. Jamie Whincup is our race leader now by 7.3 seconds. So Whincup is doing what he's done so many times to put together a race win, finding the gaps when they count. That one pole position for Alex Davison on his career stats came last year, and qualifying's been the key for him. He qualified in third here, and he's turning it into a good race result.
And he obviously, after the bad start with Whincup and Lowndes, led the race. His speed's been very good after the stop. He's actually done the fastest lap of the race, a 58.21, and he's now gaining some ground on Winterbottom. We heard Winterbottom say about the oversteer. There's his dad, Richard, looking on pretty intently, and certainly a very good drive from Alex Davison thus far.
You know, and you can see from the profile we had up a moment ago, pedigree to get to this point in international motor racing is fantastic. You know, he's done a lot of things with great success along the way. And it's always been a bit of a puzzle for me that he didn't quite adapt to the task of V8 supercar racing. And here's Van Gisbergen completing his stop and rear wheels rotating.
Steady, bring your tyres in easy, don't wreck them on the first lap, but we need to probably put a couple of reasonable ones in so we can jump Slady if we can.
Paul Forgy just coaching Shane Van Gisbergen. And he's still travelling all right, so whatever the problem was before hasn't materialised.
A couple of things for the Steve Johnson fans. He did a really good job at the start of the race, but he had a bad pit stop. They couldn't get the air spike on, so he's gone down to 13th. The other guy that has done a really good job was Rick Kelly, who come from way back. He qualified really badly. He was in 25th position, but he got to 13th. So 12 spots for Rick Kelly before the last lot of stops. He's back in the pits now for his final stop.
Carl Reindler too, up to 12th position.
Now, interesting, we just saw the Lee Holdsworth stop a moment ago, and they're already saying to him, conserve fuel. So he's marginal, and they've asked him to wind a bit of, roll out of it early was the instruction, and go to a conservation mode in the fuel.
It's a good time for us to check in on the Pepsi Max entry, because we really haven't seen much of Murph so far today. Car 11. Just check out this replay of Rick Kelly there with Steve Owen in the VIP car. Steve back in full-time V8 supercar racing, now a two-time Fujitsu champ. So the Pepsi Max crew is the sponsor now for Greg Murphy. Car number 11 this time around, so after all those years, 51 is not on the side of the window. So
now Lowndes is finally off that tyre set that he's murdered, and here's Courtney goes repaired and departed. And he'll be pleased to see those
straight in the bin.
Rears are done all right.
I'll have a bet with you they won't be back on the car tomorrow.
Still in first gear.
Looks like it's been through a war, that thing at Courtney's.
Let's go. Courtney in front, not opposition. Just need to see what we can do with this car.
Snake their way under the circuit and pop back out on the other side. The debris left behind by the the lap 1 incident involving Will Davison. He went through that foam sponsors board. Love this part of the circuit.
Sort of a replica of Laguna Seca, the corkscrew, and it's really good body language of the cars, and you've got to get a really good run out of turn 6 onto this big long straight.
Hey, what do you think of the Pepsi Max livery?
I actually like it.
Like it?
Well, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great. What do you think, Neil? Style Council?
It's good, but I'm just looking at data here at the moment. No, I'm aware of what you're talking about. The Pepsi, having them involved in the sport is fantastic, and they've picked a good guy in Greg Murphy. But I'm really interested in this battle between Alex Davison and Mark Winterbottom, because that's continuing just to narrow down at the moment. It's just 0.89 of a second last time, so we'll keep an eye off to the side on that one. Here's the gap. And he's just managed to sneak that margin a little bit closer in the last couple of laps. Being heavily distracted in the commentary box here at the moment. Tander in, Fabian Coulthard in, Paul Dumbrell in. There's timing for the fuel. The fuel rate, about 4.1 litres a second, the refuelling.
There's the boot popped up when they came in.
Go.
There is a bit of damage on the back of it.
It didn't look like a Rossiter change.
Rear bar made a tyre pressure adjustment on these. We're effectively still raising Holdsworth. He'll be in front of you. It's short on fuel.
Now, you saw a number on that clock, because that's what it is. It's a stopwatch.
At this stage, we look like we have a clear pit lane and we go.
And that number was 13 seconds when he plucked the coupling off the car. That's about 52 litres of fuel. So remember Mark Larkham said earlier that some guys need to get to that critical point in the race and then they might have the short fill scenario. Well, that's what was happening with that car that we were just looking at.
Now, Garth almost went through the wrong bay there, and I'm not sure if they were waiting for him to go through, but he changed his mind. Okay. So it's Fabian Coulthard's crew waving him in. And I think Garth just saw the hand raised.
I reckon
he died, but he should have gone through there
it
anyway.
was the guys from Brad Jones Racing, and he may have mistaken them because they're all red as well as the Holden Racing Team group. Here's an update on the Craig Lowndes rear tyres, and I know you're going to be just blown away to hear me say that they're completely destroyed. I know it's surprising, but they're delaminated. He's actually torn the tread clean off the carcass. Now, it's hard to imagine when you see a tonne and a half sliding sideways at 200 kilometres an hour repeatedly how that
Lap
can
after
happen,
lap.
but it has.
Now, Davison and Winterbottom come in at the same time.
Critical stops here for these two teams. Two of the factory teams for Ford.
So Winterbottom was ahead of Alex.
Nearly done. Nearly done.
There you go.
They had to think twice.
No, they dropped him too early and then they had another go at it.
So there you go.
That's
one spot changes.
That's a positional change that matters too.
Well, it matters all right because Alex Davison's been wanting to have a crack at Jamie Whincup since lap 1.
And Stone Brothers, you made mention before of them being the factory team. They've just concluded a new arrangement with Ford Motor Company in Australia for an additional 2 years of support from Ford. So Jason Bargwanna and
Greg Murphy
managed to avoid each other in the end.
By a split hair. Tim Slade now has the fastest lap of the race, and of course a lap record 1:58.016 for car 47. There is some pace out there.
16 remaining.
So, as I said, a critical stop. There's too many of these mistakes for FPR. When that happens like that, you've got to make a great stop and you've got to get out in front of the competition. And when he come in, he had Alex Davison coming at him for speed on the circuit. And now the job for Mark Winterbottom is much tougher to catch Alex Davison and to be able to get by him for effectively second and third in this race. Here it is. He was told to go, and then they had to go again because the left front wasn't clear. Then he stalled, and now he's gone. And there's Alex Davison. There's the crucial spot. Much easier to get spots in the pit lane than on the track.
There was nothing in it. I reckon he was clear.
Yeah, he didn't. The spike went back on, and I assumed that there was something incomplete, but that wasn't the case. So that's just purely a communication issue.
You're dead right, Neil. In fact, he didn't stall the car. He was in the car, I was watching. He threw his arms in the air. He didn't know whether to stop, go, or indifferent. So, bit of confusion. You're dead right.
Yeah, so the front left was done, but it
didn't look like it was.
Didn't look like it.
And this is the thing, it's so easy to be an armchair expert externally, but trust me when I tell you that when you're in the cauldron in that situation and you're one of the crew members trying to process these cars, knowing that a tenth of a second makes a monumental difference, it's unbelievably hard.
So James Courtney's on a rescue mission here. He's simply trying to get to the end of this race now to get points.
And that was Scott Sinclair, who was his engineer last year at Jim Beam Racing, who stayed with him, and he's just making sure that...
Lousy's after GT, so just be careful with GT, please.
So that Scott's just saying, look, you're down in 27th. He's done the fastest lap of the race and a new lap record for James Courtney, a 1:57.9, but they're ensuring that he doesn't fumble Garth Tander, his teammate, who's currently 7th and needs to make sure that he has plenty of space. So Whincup is the man. We're expecting another stop from him soon.
So clearly aerodynamics didn't play a part in fastest lap times around here, because Courtney's done a 1:57.9 with that. Look at that.
With the Bull Terrier look. She's got a bit average at the front, isn't it? Not too flash in the back either.
Yeah.
The sides are good.
Yeah. I think the glove box is okay. It's straight. Warren Love, Paul Dumbrell, Russell Ingall are now also in the pit lane. Here's Paul.
Inside.
And he's out. He's actually stationary down there, so they're looking for some sort of damage in the front end of that car. So that's disappointing, because the car came into this event with good pace. Paul qualified in 5th.
Bang, break into turn 18 and it went straight on, so something's broke.
There you go. So Paul's just explained
A
breakage.
was at turn 18, we just went straight on. You can turn the steering wheel for me, PD. Thanks, mate.
And that's Dave Patterson, his engineer, just making sure that the guys underneath can see as he moves the steering rack, just to be able to reveal what's going on in the hub. James Moffat has also come in, and that leaves, basically, as we saw earlier, Jamie Whincup.
Drive it into the garage. Could you turn it into the garage?
So Whincup is the last man standing to do the stop, and remember that he's basically on a very standard strategy, but as Mark Larkham explained, he only has to grab enough fuel to get to the end, so it's a short stop for Jamie Whincup, who's already got margin on his side, but they can't afford a slip because Alex Davison isn't too far afield.
This looks pretty lively, this group. As you can see there, that's Caruso up the inside at the final corner of Jason Bargwanna. Just in front is Carl Reindler, and just in front is D'Alberto.
This is race 1 of the season at Yas Marina Circuit in Abu Dhabi. Hope you're enjoying it. And this battle is ready to explode right here, because there's a bit of push and shove going on. Carl Reindler in the thick of it. Tony D'Alberto, Jason Bargwanna, Michael Caruso. Jamie Whincup, the race leader, comes in for his 2nd stop.
Now Reindler's got good speed in that car.
First gear for me, please. Still nothing in pit lane. Still nothing in pit lane. Wheels are done. Okay, away you go. I need you over that. Keep into it.
Now this is playing out perfectly for car 88.
All cold tyres. Cautious down there. We'll be coming out in front of Alex Davison, hopefully with a big gap. All cold tyres. Bring that front bar up 1 if you want. It's not bad where it is.
Now, Mark can see on the telemetry the position of the anti-roll bars front and rear, so he's having a look at the brake bias, he's looking at the rear and front anti-roll bars. We're checking that gap back to Alex Davison, and it is big, as Mark explained. And so he's just giving them the support that a driver needs. You need to be reminded that you've got no temp in the tyres, you've got no pressure in the tyres. It sounds odd, but you don't want to go back out onto the racetrack and immediately try and pick up the driving rhythm that you had before. So 10 seconds is the magic number between 1st and 2nd. And there's just no threat at all at the moment for Whincup.
Run you through the highlights of this race. Craig Lowndes started on pole position to the left of screen, but just about stalled it. Alex Davison took full advantage, threaded the needle beautifully, and was all of a sudden leading this race. That was Garth Tander giving Lowndes a bit of a whack. Then Will Davison, in his first race for Ford Performance Racing, almost wiped out the back end of the field. That was the incident at the top of the screen there involving James Courtney and Jason Bargwanna. Now, Bargwanna gets out of it okay, aside from losing track position. Courtney, no siree. Car number 1 into the garage. In his first drive of the Holden Racing team since 2005. That one ended in a crash. This one, well, he's back out there right now, but it's a salvage job. Whincup put together beautiful lap times to get himself a buffer. It's been a great job from Tim Slade, but Craig Lowndes has literally driven the rubber off car 888. He was throwing it around so meanly. By the time they got in, there was virtually nothing left on the rears of that car. Steve Owen and Rick Kelly. Owen in the VIP car, number 49. And here was the mistake that was so costly for Mark Winterbottom and FPR. That allowed Alex Davison to get a position in pit lane. Winterbottom at that stage was second. And more dramas out of that camp for the Bottle-O entry of Paul Dumbrell. He's had a steering mishap and he's in the garage. James Courtney is stuck with nowhere to go. He's got tape all over the front and rear of that car. He's pointing the wrong way. So he's lost control here.
Let us spin. That's turn 19.
I can hear Dave Patterson suggesting that they're going to send Paul Dumbrell back out for just an observation lap to see what they're dealing with. So you'll see him back out. So it's been a tough opening account for James Courtney. He's got the new lap record, but just a big pile of disaster, and this was all on his own.
And Neil, I'm guessing what this might be with Dumbrell, when we've all experienced in our careers, you know, you get that horrible build-up of rubber around your tyre, and you come in, you think you've got flat tyres, no brakes, something wrong, and it's nothing more than build-up. The guy's crawled all over that car, haven't found anything.
And Larko, you must have been getting money from Neil Crompton, because Neil explained the same thing on another car earlier. And now you've come in and reiterated the issue. So now Neil thinks, absolutely, I'm on top of the game here. So well done. You've justified Crompo's existence on the rubber deal.
Well, so there is Paul Dumbrell, as I said a minute ago. They were just going to do an observation lap to see what the issue was with his car. And he's back out and about.
Stephen Johnson in 12th. And Will Davison behind him. There's David Reynolds. Back 16th. In the main game.
The battle here is for position between David and Steve. And these fellas are battling over 14th and 15th at the moment.
I said before about the Kellys. They've come up to be 10th and 11th. So Rick Kelly from 25th to 11th. What a great drive to give him a reasonable points haul from a shocking qualifying. This is a good, healthy battle here with Dave Reynolds and Steve Owen, two young guys that are heavily in the main game now. They've been very successful in the Fujitsu series, and Dave Reynolds did a really good job at Bathurst last year. So did Steve Owen. So it's good to see them in these cars full time.
Coming through soon, there he goes, this young James Moffat, full-time debut in the V8 Supercar Championship. I walked across to the circuit with him this morning. He said, you know, it's weird. We were walking over with Stevie Johnson. He said, now I find myself driving with these guys, and literally had posters of Stevie and Craig Lowndes and those guys on the wall. He knew he was in for a tough time today because he got a few touch-ups at the test day at Eastern Creek and in practice. So I think he knew what was coming. But a very excited young man, and he's currently in 20th position as he tries to carve out a full-time career in V8.
That was James Small we're looking at there a moment ago, engineered for David Reynolds, just encouraging him in this battle with Steve Owen.
It is good in DJR camp for another of the factory Ford teams to have a couple of names like Johnson and Moffat in one garage. Fantastic revival for that team.
Well, it's been a busy time for James. He's relocated up to the Gold Coast. So everything's happening very quickly for him.
He had a misfire in qualifying with the car. That was one of the reasons why he had a bit of a battle on his hands, but his account in the race has been pretty solid. It's very difficult when you start from down there.
So there's Todd Kelly, as we said earlier, with the Queensland signage on their Commodore for the weekend. And certainly, as we said, has come up from 17th position to 10th, and his brother behind him from 25th to 11th. So as race cars, these cars much better than they performed in qualifying. They were very disappointed in that garage, none more so than Greg Murphy in the new Pepsi Max Commodore. They were all complaining of a very similar thing. So for tomorrow, they clearly need to qualify better because their race speed is quite good. Todd Kelly's actually done a 58.4. Sorry, he's done a 58.6 against the fastest lap of the race, Tim Slade, with a 58 dead. So he's only 0.6 of a second away in terms of race speed.
Well, Jamie Whincup has won the last 11 races to be held outside of Australia, 11 straight. He's on course to make that an even dozen. And it's quite a number, isn't it? Since Bahrain in 2008, Whincup has not been beaten away from home. What
it's
a streak.
amazing, isn't it? It's great, isn't it? This is a healthy battle with young James Moffat getting a little welcoming to the main game. As D'Alberto gives him a bump on the way out of turn 1 up into turn 2. Pretty fast section of road, and they're all alongside each other. This is Bargwanna down the inside of Dave Reynolds. There's a little bump to come onto the straight coming out of turn 6 and turn 7. Caruso takes advantage and goes up the inside of the lot.
This has got a signature all over it.
Stand tuned for the next corner here.
Yeah, so they're getting organised to all banging heads down here.
So that was very negative of you, Neil.
There's a pretty good mid-pack battle going on with under 10 laps remaining of the first race here at Yas Marina Circuit. Jamie Whincup's the leader by 11.5 seconds. Alex Davison is second. Mark Winterbottom is third. Here's James Courtney, way down in 27th out of 28. This battle that we're looking at includes Michael Caruso. Carl Reindler's at the front of it. So Reindler's in 15th position. There's Caruso, then Bargwanna. And David Reynolds is also in there as well. And I think simply by the fact that this circuit is so wide, somehow that's why they've all managed to stay on it, because half a lap ago, they were for all money going to whack into each other or into the wall.
I was laughing because Lee Holdsworth is on the radio to Richard Holloway, and Richard Holloway's saying, look after the fuel, Todd's a long way behind you. Lee comes back and he says, if I was going any slower, I'd be stopped, mate.
Yeah, they're in fuel conservation mode. Now, just wanted to make a point here about the performance from Fabian Coulthard. And Bundy Racing this year scaled down to one car, but so far this weekend it's been a strong performance. He's inside the top 10, 8th at the moment, not terribly far behind Craig Lowndes. And new livery on the car for 2011. And you'll recall the horrendous accident that he had in the opening phase of the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000 last year. But so far so good for him in 2011. Practice, qualifying and the race has been pretty strong.
You just do need to explain the change of livery here in Abu Dhabi. Alcohol sponsorship isn't allowed, so Dick Johnson Racing, sponsored by Jim Beam, have just got the team. Same with Jack Daniels Racing. They've taken the opportunity to support Queensland. So by the time we get back home, folks, you'll see the normal sponsors back on board.
Good pass there, Steve Johnson, late in the race. That was for 11th position. He and Rick Kelly have been battling, and he dived up the inside into turn 21 into the final corner and got that pass done. Rick allowed him a little bit of room by running a little wide at the previous corner, but it was a good pass and a good battle over the last 3 or 4 laps. This is Will Davison, also coming up onto the back of Rick Kelly. Rick used those tyres very hard. He's done a 58.2, which is only 2.5 tenths slower than the fastest lap of the race, but he's probably used the tyres a bit hard early in this run.
So just to go back to your remark, and you're having a giggle there about the conversation between Lee and Richard, stopping him on lap 23 means that He's a little bit earlier than that critical number that Mark Larkham talked about earlier, and therefore about 8 litres early. So that's the reason why they're trying to basically get it to run on fumes to get it through to the end.
Guys, I'm just down here in the team Vodafone pit. Here's a couple of, well, there's Adrian Burgess, the new team manager we talk about, and Dutto, Mark Dutton and Jerry Moore, the engineer. So there's some continuity there. We thought we'd actually got rid of Roland Dane. Now, I didn't realise. I just looked down the back of the garage. Look, sitting down here like Dickie Nee. Hey, hello? Seriously, mate, we had celebration drinks last night. We thought we'd finally got rid of you, but here you are.
No, it's really comfortable, this chair. I'm enjoying it. Leave all the stress up there. Sit back, kick his ass every so often. It's good.
So truly, are you going to play this role for the rest of the year, or are you going to stay at home?
No, I might be at home sometimes, but no, I'll be here trying to give them a hand, and everything just leaving it up to them. Yeah.
All right, well, you're doing a good job down the back here, mate. Nice to see you relaxed. There you are.
And it's interesting, he picked the guy to head the group that he fought with in the championship last year, who ultimately toppled this organisation. So if you're going to grab somebody, grab the guy that beat you and strengthen your squad. And that's what they've done with Adrian Burgess. Jamie Whincup, incidentally, just a moment ago, picked up the fastest lap of the race and therefore a new lap record. And what on earth is that?
A bit of foam.
It was a bit of foam.
Yeah.
And so 57.85 for Whincup on lap 36, new lap record.
Very impressive lap, isn't it?
Looked like a floating car wash.
It's weird.
And Will Davison, a lot of pressure on the back of Rick Kelly. And have a look at them out of oversteer. This is out of turn 19. We saw James Courtney have a spin there. This is a great shot out of the front of Will Davison's car. You see Rick now. Just have a look at the body language. He gets it turned in. He's got to be very, very steady on the throttle.
So heading towards the finale of this race, Whincup is clearly the man to beat. What a battle. Will Davison in the Trading Post FPR car against Rick Kelly. And then Steve Owen. So you're looking at 12th, 13th and 14th. Davison now in position 12, courtesy of this. Yeah, nice and clean.
Not a bad recovery when you consider that Will was pointing the wrong direction up at turn 2 early in the race, and to just put his head down and fight back like this, getting valuable points. It's not going to be a result that you'll refer to in the years ahead as one of the great ones, but it's a nice recovery. And this is still on here. And now Rick Kelly, he's just going to hustle him big time down the other end of the straight. He switches to try and confuse and open up a gap. He's got Will driving down the dirty line, and the car just flinched a little bit under brakes.
What happens is, as the rear tyre deteriorates, it deteriorates in all parts of performance, so the braking actually gets hurt. So you knew that Rick was right in contention before the braking area. So we see them through 15, 16, but you can't stop the car as well. The rear tyre's been hurt so significantly that it can't brake as well as also we've already seen the oversteer through the corners.
And that's the one that traps you, because the lateral or side load in the car is relatively easy to feel and read, but you pick a point in your braking and you say, well, I'm committing to this, and then all of a sudden the car won't carry that load under brakes and unloads and it'll flick you off. So
exactly.
Always reasonably easy to sort of feel a lack of grip when you're sliding, but not necessarily when you're braking.
Big slide there from
Great work, mate. Great
Rick Kelly.
Think about your bum.
He's going to run wide here. This is a crisscross for Steve Owen. He can't quite get it done, but he's in a lot of trouble as they go up to turn 2. He's right in behind Rick Kelly. This is very fast. Owen runs wide. That was a little mistake from Steve Owen.
And the puffs that you saw on the pit straight were the oil soak from an incident earlier in one of the support events here, and you go offline and start farming around on the road and throws it up in the air. It looked pretty spectacular.
Have a look at this big slide. This is Rick Kelly right out wide in the, I was going to say, their normal sponsor in the Queensland Commodore this weekend.
Caruso's continued to chip away here. He's tagged onto the back of this group, and when you consider that he was turned around early in the race as well, good recovery, 16th. 13.6 seconds. Alex Davison is behind Jamie Whincup. It's a pretty hefty margin. And Whincup's performance has again been remarkable in the Middle East.
So Van Gisbergen in front of Slade. The Whincup, your leader, from Alex Davison, Mark Winterbottom, Shane Van Gisbergen and Tim Slade. So that's 3 of the Stone Brothers cars in the top 5. A very, very good performance from that outfit.
And if you play the game of calculator averages with the margin that Jamie's got over Alex at the moment, call it 14 seconds for simplicity, he's got a race car that's effectively 0.3 of a second per lap faster. And you know that in this game, that's a pretty hefty margin.
Hey, Neil, I know you mentioned earlier, but I think we should really take stock and acknowledge the effort that Timmy Slade's putting in here in that Lucky 7 car on screen. I get the gut feeling that he's finally arrived. He's done well in Fujitsu. He's a real good young guy, good style of a guy, and he's just up there too often now. And I think this isn't just one-off. I reckon we're going to see a fair bit of this kid, and I reckon that's great.
He was very strong straight away. As soon as the cars dropped on the track yesterday, he was the fastest man in practice 3. He was second fastest in practice 4. He's qualified 6th for this race, and that goes to your point. Just underscore, and you know, he continues to punch away. He's actually been having a nice little inter-team battle here with Shane Van Gisbergen. They're on the different strategies from memory.
Garth Tander, a good fight back from 14th to 6th. Craig Lowndes, obviously a bad start and a severe oversteer problem in the second segment of this race, has gone from 1st down to 7th, so he won't be happy with his race car. Fabian Coulthard, we've already spoken about. He's done a really good job to be 8th. Lee Holdsworth in fuel consumption and conservation mode on board now with Jamie Whincup, and Todd Kelly rounds out your top 10. So you can see him still driving it very smoothly, very nice. He's backed the speed off. He's done a 59.78, so it's 2 seconds slower than the fastest lap that he's done. So he can afford now to conserve this and cruise a little.
Performance of Van Gisbergen, just put that in perspective. He lost some time yesterday in practice 3, and those that were above, outside the top 14 in the championship get to do practice 1 and 2 yesterday, but those basically, the front runners, don't get to do the first session, so you really got to do a lot in a little in terms of track time. And then he went out and he had a power steering problem. He only got about half a dozen laps in practice 3, and then he had to really do all of his work, therefore, in just a little over 1 practice session. So to get the car working and to drive it well in that narrow time frame, I think is a pretty fair effort.
If you have a look at how well Jamie Whincup's driving this car, just have a look at the steering movement and the rate in which he turns the wheel and how nice he is on the throttle. This is the soft tyre, we've said it before, never used here at this track. He's been 0.3 of a second faster than the next guy in this race in terms of his consistency. And have a little look at the way he drives it. Nice, smooth action, nice throttle modulation, using all the road. Nice late change there.
He was really stung by that championship defeat last year, wasn't he? I mean, he was gutted by it, particularly given the race success that he had with 9 race wins.
Make sure you're happy with bars and lows.
And you know what, if there is any extra inspiration that he needs, and he doesn't, it's right there in the top left of your screen. He doesn't have the number 1 on the car. He's back to 88, and that's what hurt him. He saw number 1 on James's car at the test day at Eastern Creek. He's had a lot of time to think about it after we wrapped up the season at Homebush in Sydney. And like you say, Crompo, 9 race wins, 10 pole positions for the season, but consistency cost them in the end. Lack of it.
Mark's point about the steering wheel work here is just,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's just textbook. Now, Alex Davison here is on target for his 2nd podium. His last one was at Darwin in 09, and I can't speak too highly of his opening account so far this year as well. So this man, unless something weird happens with a 14.5 second margin, has got it nicely stitched up. And shortly we'll find Alex Davison for you, and we'll just have a look at him in the Irwin Tools car, because it's been a terrific performance. And he said on his the minute he got to the circuit that he couldn't wait to get stuck into it because of the way this car's behaving and responding. He's got Dan Crowan doing the engineering in this car now. Dave Stewart, who engineered last year, he was very, very happy with, but Dave's taken more of an overseeing role, a little bit like what we've seen shuffle in a couple of the other teams. Just move people around, just take the load off Dave Stewart because there's a huge workload on. This is Mark Winterbottom, and he's chasing the man that we're discussing, Alex Davis, and so this is position 3 in the race, and there's the margin between them.
And we always say about each of the teams and the way they tune the car and have the car to suit the driver to get the best from the tyre and to get the best yield at certain circuits. This is a circuit you've got to keep the flow up. And both these cars, the Stone Brothers car and the FPR Falcon, have been flowing very nicely. They turn the car in, they run the car on the front wheel, and they keep the momentum up, which takes the load off the rear tyre, and therefore their consistency is better. So both these guys, they've actually tuned the cars. If you look at the two cars, they're tuned very similarly from two completely different organisations. And they've done a great job, both of them. Little mistake in the pit that we saw Mark Winterbottom, FPR team, cost them second position, and Alex Davison was right there to jump on that as we pick up on the next two Stone Brothers cars. As I said, 3 cars in the top 5. Pretty healthy battle. Tim Slade's not letting Van Gisbergen get too far away. And again, they're driving the cars very accurately and flowing them very well.
The other notable thing about Jamie Whincup's weekend is this is his 100th V8 Supercar event. Shane Van Gisbergen's 50th. So a couple of critical milestones, and there's a bit at play here because these two guys are in the same garage, and young Tim will want to try and climb over Shane for a position here.
And this has been the story of our defending series champ. 27th position for James Courtney. He started 20th, had contact with Jason Bargwanna, was in the garage for a whole stack of time.
I'd take him out of this group. He's nowhere in the race. I would take him out of this group. You don't need to be part of a race late in the race for damage, for drama. Just pull back 100 metres and let him blaze on.
Back out of it, take the points that you've got.
It's also heavily distracting for those that are actually in the middle of their own race.
It's just not healthy to be there like that.
It's the body language of the car climbing up the hill there through turn 2. It was on the rev limiter, it's sliding. Real wrestle to try and get a big car stopped, and the direction change at turn 3.
How's the performance from this bloke? There's just something about the way that he adapts. Remember, 12 months ago, they came here
Jamie, 1 to go, mate. Bring it home.
with a Holden for the first time and wiped the field. This time around, they come back again for the first time, soft tyres into play. Whincup adapts straight away.
The thing that is amazing me here is the margin, which is why I did the calculation before, just to get a bit of an idea as to what sort of margin he's enjoying over people. I mean, sometimes it's possible for there to be half a tenth or a tenth of a second on average, lap after lap. Yeah, that makes sense, because you got your car tweaked just right, you drove it right, you did everything the way you ought to, in an engineering and a driving and sporting sense. But when you've got a margin that's this big, that's actually a walloping. So up and down the lane at the moment, that will actually be a bit of a head scratch for a few people, because to see the wheel work, for him to be able to drive so comfortably and so fast,
it's always a sign of guys who do a great job in any sport, is how slow it looks. And you have a look at the way he's driving the car. He is absolutely at one with it. And we've already said you couldn't have done a much better job today than this sort of performance.
Well, he was in that kind of form in 2008, 2009 when he went back-to-back as the champion. They just couldn't lay a glove on him. 100th championship event, turned 28 last weekend, so there's a lot of celebrating to do. The signs were there when it was an all-team Vodafone front row. It didn't go the way for Craig Lowndes, but it's certainly gone the way at this incredible circuit for this man. Unbeaten on the road, literally, when the V8 Supercars leave Australia. 11 straight wins away from home. Will now be 12, but there's drama here because Carl Reindler has hit the fence and hit it hard. It won't deter Jamie Whincup. One more turn to go for car 88. And this is a clear message from a man who wants his title back. Whincup wins in Abu Dhabi. And that's the perfect start for his season and his title chase to get #1 back on the door. And a good start for Adrian Burgess now as the team manager at Team Vodafone. Alex Davison on the podium for the first time in a couple of years, and Mark Winterbottom crosses in third. Jamie Whincup, Matty White here, congratulations. That's the way that you wanted to start.
Yeah, thanks, Matty. Car was fantastic today. We wanted to kick off 2011 on the best possible foot, and looking forward to a big year, mate.
How pumped are you to get that #1 back on that car?
I actually saw the #1 car in front of me before, thought it was me, then I realised I'm number 88. So, hey, maybe one day we'll get it back.
Hey, Jamie, Mark Scaife, it was a drama at the start. Both you and Craig battled to get the cars away, but a great drive through the race. I mean, the balance of the car looked fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Scapey. Clearly we've been working hard over the break, and car's excellent, better than it probably was last year. So, as I say, mate, looking forward to a big year.
J-Dub, what is it about you and travelling? I mean, you're unbeaten in the last 12 races now away from home.
I don't know, mate. I think it's just a coincidence because I love the Aussie tracks as well, especially the street stuff. But, hey, you know, there's mixed emotions whether we should start the championship here, but I love it, mate. One of the best tracks in the world.
Well done today. Congratulations.
Thanks, matey. Cheers.
A 13-second victory in this category is a walloping. I mean, that's a big-time win. And that's a hell of a way to make a statement at the start of the year.
Certainly is.
So Davison second, Mark Winterbottom in third. You have to go back to 27th to dial into this man, James Courtney. Hey, James, tough day for you. Tough night.
Yeah, it wasn't the best start to the year, that's for sure. So, look, we got tangled up a bit at the start, damaged the car slightly, and, you know, and then we were out of it. So, just drove around in the afternoon, trying to get a bit of a feel for the car, but we've got a bit of work to do, and, you know, it's only the start of the year. A lot of racing to go yet, guys.
Yeah, James, Mark Scaife, it looked like the car had reasonable speed. When you come back out, you did a 57.99. What's the balance of the car like?
Yeah, the car was really wasn't too bad, like you said, but it deteriorated quite quickly. It wasn't too good on the tyres, something that we were really good at last year. So we're going to try and shine that up tonight, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
We'll see you on the grid tomorrow. Thanks, James.
Cheers, boys.
That's a tough way to start when you're the defending series champion in a brand new car at a brand new team for a brand new manufacturer for James Courtney, but he will be back, and he'll be back fighting tomorrow. And this man starts the season as he did 12 months ago. Jamie Whincup made it 2 out of 2 here in Abu Dhabi in 2010, and he's on the way to do it. So Whincup, Davison and Winterbottom. Shane Van Gisbergen and Tim Slade set themselves up for another great battle tomorrow. Of course, they'll have to go through qualifying again, but it's all the signs are there for those young guys tapping on the door for their first race win. Stephen Johnson and Will Davison head the mid-pack there. David Reynolds in 17th position. Greg Murphy, the Pepsi Max crew, in 21st, and Jason Bright down the bottom of the list.
Well, great celebrations for Alex Davis. Alex, I'll let you get your helmet and gear off. But just fantastic, and congratulations, your second podium. It's been a while since Darwin, a couple of years ago, but must be great to be back on top.
We've had a rough time, you know, and it's a bit of a long time coming, and a little bit of a surprise to be so strong this early in the season, but I have to say thanks to everyone at Stone Brothers for giving me a car that enabled me to get up on the podium. Big thanks to my new race engineer, Dan. I said to him on the inlet, we sort of set him up for disappointment now, so I hope we can keep this up. And hi to Melly and Lily at home, love you.
Good on you, Alex, congratulations. We'll duck around and catch up with Mark Winterbottom just out of the Ford Performance Racing Falcon. And Frosty, good result, great to start the year with a podium.
Yeah, it is, mate. Our car is not the best on the softs. We're close, but just not close enough. So you just got to finish them. Another podium. We take a trophy home. We go again tomorrow. So or today in Australia, isn't it? So yeah, good result.
Frosty, we saw at stages last year that you and the car had a lot of speed, but it was always hard at times to keep that consistency up. Do you feel better about that this year?
Yeah, I feel good. I think the car's going to be good all year. I just got to stop hitting a couple of things like I did last year and costing myself points. So, good enough for third today. That's all we had, and I think I've learnt my lesson from last year. When it's good, we'll use it, and when it's not, we'll try and get podiums.
How's this circuit feeling compared to last year?
Well, soft tyre is really quick, so tyre degradation's quite high. Last year there was none, so you've got to conserve, but then you've got a carrot in front of you that you're trying to chase. So circuit's fantastic, you know, look at it, but yeah, great race. It was actually a really good race. I think the soft tyre was better for the event than what it was last year.
And Frosty, we know you're physically in great shape because you've just come off Rexona, Australia's greatest athlete, which is 4:30 on Sunday on Channel 7.
You don't get these peeling potatoes, mate.